Some people are natural optimists. They sincerely expect the best outcomes. The meeting will probably end early. We can leave the house at 8 a.m. and still get there with plenty of time. It won't rain the day of the wedding. If you go on that ski trip without health insurance, you'll probably be fine. God bless these sweet people, but they are wrong. Meetings never end early. Absolutely everything takes 3 times longer than you think. I can't prove this scientifically, but I'm convinced from my experience that worst case scenarios happen at least twice as often as the best. Will the AI systems turn on us? My money goes on yes. Okay, now that we've thoroughly established what kind of person I am, let's talk about faith. Specifically, let's talk about the meaning of faith in the worst case scenarios. Luke tells 2 stories of people in impossible circumstances, one sandwiched inside of the other. When Jairus first approaches Jesus, things aren't good, but there's still time to change the outcome. His 12-year-old daughter is seriously sick, and Jesus is headed toward his house when a woman appears on the scene who is already living her worst case scenario. This woman has been on her period continually for 12 years. She's seen every doctor. She's tried every weird experimental treatment. She's spent every penny of her money on medicine, and none of it has worked. Her condition is clearly incurable. This woman takes a big risk showing up in the crowd and grabbing at Jesus. In this culture, a woman in her condition was believed to ritually contaminate anyone she touched. Basically, if she gets caught, it will be a big scandal, and lots of people will have to take lots of baths to wash the bleeding woman taint off them. But she's desperate enough to reach for the back of Jesus' robe anyway, and the moment her fingers brush it, the bleeding suddenly stops. As Jesus pauses to talk to this woman, word arrives that Jairus' daughter has died. Jesus insists on continuing on anyway. When he arrives, he tells the family, "Stop crying, she's only sleeping." They all roll their eyes. These are people who've handled a lot of bodies. They know dead when they see it. Then Jesus steps into the bedroom, and a few minutes later, the young girl walks out. I wonder what faith is even supposed to look like in circumstances like these, where people are truly staring into the impossible. It's asking a lot to deny the reality right in front of your eyes. How could a woman who every previous medical treatment had failed be sure that Jesus' robe would do the trick? How could anyone look at a corpse and think, "I'm sure this is reversible"? If faith is being certain that you're going to get the outcome you're looking for, it's hard to imagine how anyone could have it. And if faith is denying the obvious truth of the circumstances you're in, it's hard to imagine why anyone would want it. But what if faith isn't about being sure what's going to happen? What if faith isn't about guaranteed outcomes or certainty what God will do? What if faith in impossible circumstances is really about holding on to just a bit of the right kind of doubt? Let me explain. The woman who reached to touch Jesus' robe didn't have to be certain of the outcome. She didn't have to be sure what would result from her actions. She just had to be a little uncertain that her condition was truly incurable. She just had to maintain enough doubt in her inevitabilities to show up and reach for Jesus. Jairus didn't have to be sure what Jesus would do when Jesus got to his house. He didn't have to be certain that his daughter's condition could or would be reversed. He just had to hold on to some small bit of doubt that the outcome was as settled as it seemed to be. Many people I know feel rather emotionally swamped by the state of the world right now. With a few dozen trains barreling down the wrong tracks at the same time, some disaster or another feels inevitable. We've tried everything and nothing has worked. The problems with the world feel incurable. Everything is too far gone. Even with a caring God at work in the world, there are no guarantees how any story will unfold. Hope is always a risk. But here's the thing. The world desperately needs people who are willing to take that risk. Faith isn't delusion. We don't have to deny the truth in front of us. We don't have to be certain of the answers. Faith isn't about certainty at all. It's a willingness to risk acting on hope where no guarantee exists. Faith is the courage to resist resigning ourselves to the inevitabilities. Faith is maintaining sacred doubt that the worst case scenario is ever the only possible outcome in a world where Jesus walks. Because God is real and close and cares, things are never over, even when they're over. Because God is involved, nothing is certain, even the impossibilities. The world needs people who know this, who are able to doubt the inevitabilities. These are the people who will get up in the morning the day after the apocalypse and keep on reaching for whatever God might do to upset the obvious ending. You don't need to be sure or even optimistic to make a difference. You just need to be wise enough and brave enough to doubt the certainties. Let's read Luke 8, verses 40 to 56. On the other side of the lake, the crowds welcomed Jesus because they had been waiting for him. Then a man named Jairus, a leader of the local synagogue, came and fell at Jesus' feet, pleading with him to come home with him. His only daughter, who was about 12 years old, was dying. As Jesus went with him, he was surrounded by the crowds. A woman in the crowd had suffered for 12 years with constant bleeding, and she could find no cure. Coming up behind Jesus, she touched the fringe of his robe. Immediately, the bleeding stopped. "Who touched me?" Jesus asked. Everyone denied it, and Peter said, "Master, this whole crowd is pressing up against you." But Jesus said, "Someone deliberately touched me, for I felt healing power go out from me." When the woman realized that she could not stay hidden, she began to tremble and fell on her knees in front of him. The whole crowd heard her explain why she'd touched him and that she had been immediately healed. "Daughter," he said to her, "your faith has made you well. Go in peace." While he was still speaking to her, a messenger arrived from the home of Jairus, the leader of the synagogue. He told him, "Your daughter is dead. There's no use in troubling the teacher now." But when Jesus heard what had happened, he said to Jairus, "Don't be afraid, just have faith, and she will be healed." When they arrived at the house, Jesus wouldn't let anyone go in with him except Peter, John, James, and the little girl's father and mother. The house was filled with people weeping and wailing. But he said, "Stop the weeping. She isn't dead. She's only asleep." But the crowd laughed at him because they all knew she had died. Then Jesus took her by the hand and said in a loud voice, "My child, get up." And at that moment her life returned and she immediately stood up. Jesus told them to give her something to eat. Her parents were overwhelmed, but Jesus insisted that they not tell anyone what had happened. I'm Megan Larissa Good, and this has been Reading Jesus. If you'd like to join me in conversation, you can post your own reflections or questions at patreon.com/Jesus Collective Community. Just look for the Luke 8 post. Thanks so much for joining me for a few minutes in Luke, and I'll see you next time.